All right. Hello. Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Modern Quality Management for Medical Devices. My name is Matt Pettit. I'm the marketing manager here at Domain Systems, and I'd like to be the first one to thank you guys for joining us. And I'm excited to introduce our speaker. But before I turn time over to Cody, I'm going to cover a few items first. You guys have certainly heard of PTC, but may not have heard of Domain Systems. Here at Domain, we are specialized in PLM applications, WINDCHILL, for example. What we do is implement, integrate, customize, and support solutions. And we do that with an eye on keeping you at PLM best practices. In short, Domain's a value-added reseller, a systems integrator, and we offer professional services as well. Let's cover a few things about the Zoom webinar platform. We're going to be muting everybody attending today just to keep any distractions at a minimum. And we're going to be holding a Q&A at the end of the presentation, and that's located at the bottom of your screen there. It'll be right next to the chat feature. And so ask any questions. You can ask anytime during. We're going to answer those at the end of the presentation. And if we don't get to your question or if we run out of time, we're going to email you directly with an answer. There's going to be a recorded version of this webinar provided. We'll email out a link when that's made available, along with the slides from today's presentation. Without further ado, let me introduce our webinar. Today, we are covering WINDCHILL PLM quality management for medical devices. We're going to dive into product quality and regulatory compliance management, the latest UI, UX features and enhancements, and learn how collaborative processes are simplified and streamlined. Cody Wiltrout will be presenting today. He's a pre-sales engineer with PTC. He's an undergrad in biomedical engineering from Penn State. And without further ado, Cody, I turn the time over to you.
All right, thank you very much. I'll go ahead and share my screen here, and then we will get started. All right, so can you confirm you can see my slideshow?
Looks perfect.
All right. So I'm going to be starting off today with a brief PowerPoint introduction into our WINDCHILL quality solution here for medical devices. And then after that, I will be getting into a demonstration that shows you just an overview of how the tool works, as well as kind of what that process would look like around managing the data. So, as mentioned earlier, if you have any questions, feel free to place them in the chat and we'll address those at the end of the demonstration here. So starting off with, a little bit of background on why PTC developed a specific kind of WINDCHILL solution, we'll say, for the medical device space. Well, specifically in the medical device space, and more specifically around quality management, there's often a lot of inefficient processes. It's pretty manual. And because of that, you end up with a lack of data harmonization. It's not all together in the same place, and it doesn't all fit together neatly. And then when you don't have that all in the same place or together, now you have a lack of enterprise visibility. So just, how healthy is their product? How many problems do we have? What state are those problems in? What parts is that related to? What actual sellable items is that related to? And it can be hard to do that whenever everything is, on a paper copy or through a manual documentation process. And then again, now you've got the manual regulatory documentation processes as well, just to make sure that you're in compliance and meeting those regulatory rules. And then lastly, there's not really a view into your product health. So as I kind of mentioned earlier with that visibility, not only can you not see everything, you can't tell where you're at, you can't tell if you're going to be meeting deadlines and things of that nature. It can be difficult to see that information when realistically you should want it to be easy and a fairly quick process. And so that's why we created this specialized WINDCHILL solution around the med device space. And it addresses those kind of issues that we just mentioned around being able to do that data harmonization, set up some efficient processes, be able to have enterprise level visibility, do your regulatory documentation, and keep looks into your product's health. And it does all of this inside of a closed loop quality management system while maintaining kind of the ISO and FDA standards there. So starting off with how this really does that and some of the capabilities that this is going to give you. The first thing that we have here is the intuitive document control system with a desktop integration. And so what this really means is that you have an integration to Windows that allows you to directly be able to upload things into WINDCHILL without ever having to even necessarily get into it. So a pretty easy user interface for people who might be new to the tool. You also have the ability to implement a standard ISO 1345 document control process. So that's going to be 21 CFR Part 11 compliant, have electronic signatures, change controls, auditable change records, some configurable attributes and workflows, and then have some unique metadata around those processes and the approvals. We also allow you to easily create and control standard operating procedures. So again, you have some very easy desktop integration capabilities for bringing documents in. You've got predefined document types like standard operating procedures and abilities to do things like publish to PDF, put cover sheets, watermarks, and then share all of those out to whoever needs to be viewing that. Now, lastly, here we have some standard ISO 9001 pre-configuration processes, and we also meet EU MDR 2020 as well. So these are some predefined but configurable workflows, and they have integrated BOM and documents, as well as the ability to do things like automatically generate change notices, link your different quality inputs, like things for design history and complaints, and then get into looking at those CAPAs and what the independent action threads for those should be. And you can have multiple independent action threads for complex CAPAs as well. Going into the efficient processes next, we have a lot of things inside of the system to try to keep things fast and smooth. So first off, we have automatic generation of training tasks. And whenever changes are made to those standard operating procedures or to policies, it will automatically push out new tasks to the people who need to review on that information. And then you can track who all has certified on that and who is trained on it very quickly and easily. We also have an integrated change process. So you're going to do kind of one change and it's going to encompass everything. It's going to pull all the related information together so that you're not trying to track it down by hand individually. And then that means because you have all the information, you're making sure that everything is up to date, that you're going to reduce your scrap and rework, and again, be able to create those auditable change records. Now, as we mentioned earlier as well, we have those standard ISO 9001 CAPA pre-configuration processes. So those processes are going to allow you to automatically start filling in information and things of that nature and speed that process up. Same type of idea here as well with the ISO 1345 processes. We have some built-in wizards for different customer feedback and different types of documentation things to automatically fill that in. So it's going to help you step by step through that process of filling that information in and make it fast and easy. And then lastly here around the efficient processes, we have projects that can be managed for single or recurring audits. So you can have some projects that kind of follow the flow, we'll say almost of the FDA release process, for example, where you could set like 8 phases or 7 phases, whatever you want, and then do kind of requirements and goals and things that you want to be met for each of those phases, and then you can audit that at any time. Getting into harmonization of the data, the first thing that we can see here is the ability to speed the resolution of quality issues by having access to that. So we have some ability to do some different types of displays on that information, as well as, again, those rapid entry forms for things like CAPA capturing to make sure that all that data is together and related. You can also capture, manage, and resolve manufacturing or supplier issues here. So the idea being, again, this is going to be the place where you can come to with all of that information and then have it all tied together. You can also manage intakes, reporting, and capture external quality information. So with that, then you can capture that customer feedbacks, any product field experiences, any complaints that you might receive, and generate and manage all of that data inside of WINDCHILL. You can also then get your DHF and your DMR. So it's going to allow you to manage all of those and have change controls on those as well, and then have those auditable records. When it comes to visibility, we can see some of the same information that you might see in harmonization. So starting off, as I kind of mentioned around reporting a little bit there in the last slide, you do have a lot of capabilities around reporting and how you want to view that, as well as the ability to do monitoring. So if you have a problem that does occur, set a monitor to watch to make sure that that same problem does not occur again in the future. And then from those reports, be able to quickly get clear visibility across all the different information and then react to that, see what is in what state, see if something's behind, and then from there, do whatever you need to with the next step. You can also do that regulatory and safety reporting here. So all the reporting for the EMDR, EU Vigilance, Canada, etc., whatever you might need, you're going to have all those different reports, and you can see that very quickly and easily. And then again, with being able to generate those DHFs and DMR automatically, you're going to have quick visibility into that information and everything that's associated to it. So along with the last point here being that you can understand the product status at those milestones. So as I kind of mentioned with the projects, you can put goals and deliverables that you want at those. And so you can see if those are being met or not. And again, just have high level visibility. Where are we at? Are we on task? Are we behind on something? Are we missing any information? For the product's health, you have the ability to have real-time access to that reporting, training records, and dashboards to see who's trained on something, see if they need to get trained, or if you need to add someone else or remind someone that they need to do something. Have clear visibility into that. And then with that reporting and effectiveness monitoring, again, see quickly where's the health of your product at. And with the safety reporting, you're going to see if you are having any problems, see if you're missing anything, and then from there say, okay, what steps do we need to take to address that issue? As well as being able to get that external quality information and manage it along with your design information so that you see clear connectivities between those and what problems you might have with specific medical devices, for example. And then lastly, again there, understand those statuses at the milestones to tell if you're in a healthy situation or not. So going from kind of those capabilities with what we saw, we're going to next transition over to the demonstration so you can see a little bit of that in action and how WINDCHILL really works. And we're going to start with some document control and managing some documents, get into some complaint, nonconformance, and CAPA management, and then look at some of the design capabilities and where design controls and things of that nature are at here inside of WINDCHILL. So I'll go ahead and pull that up. So we're going to start here from Microsoft Word with this standard operating procedure that we have. And from here, we can see we have this WINDCHILL tab at the top. So this is that desktop integration that I had mentioned earlier. From here, I can directly create new documents inside of WINDCHILL, open existing documents from inside of WINDCHILL, do check-ins or checkouts to make sure that we're managing that data correctly, and anything else I might need. So now that we have maybe a new document that we might want to open, I can come in and directly start kind of digging down inside of WINDCHILL to where that would be. So we have some different options there. And then from here, I could easily pass that information back and forth. Now with the desktop integration, you also have the ability to do this directly from your kind of file structure browser on your computer. So you can come in to your this PC and then go to your WINDCHILL documents, and it will bring you into your WINDCHILL instance. So we saw these here briefly before on the Word doc side as well in Microsoft Office there. So what these are your context for organizing information inside of WINDCHILL. And we'll dig into these a little bit further as we get into WINDCHILL, but the best way to think about them is essentially just ways to organize the information from a high level. So right now, we could say I have this document that is a standard operating procedure. So I want to put it into WINDCHILL. So I have a library for some documentation that I might want that to go into. And I can just directly drag it here from my desktop into that folder. And when I do that, it's going to launch a wizard to say, hey, we see that you're bringing in a document. What type of document is this first off? And from this list, you can see we have a lot of specific documentation pre-builds around the med device space and documents that you might have to make, starting from some simple things like standard operating procedures into governance documents, audits, whatever it would be. Choose the document type that fits what you're trying to do, and then it'll start walking you through the information that needs to be filled in for that. So we'll start here with our standard operating procedure, and then we'll give it a name. So it's going to auto pull the name from whatever file is, as well as you can always edit it. Then we can decide if it's going to go into our DHF, and if so, what category that's going to fall under. And then once we have that, we can choose if we want any training records for it. In our case, yes, we want people to train on it since it's a standard operating procedure. And then if there's any additional classification information you want to put, you can do that and then say okay, and it will start pulling that into WINDCHILL for us. So just like that, pretty simple process to get some new documentation in there, and it's going to make sure that you're filling in all of the information that you need as you go through that process. Now, continuing on in the idea of managing our documents here, we get a first look at a dashboard around maybe what information I want to see with those documents. We can see I have some documents that are still being worked on, some that are in training, some that are effective and being used. But from here, I can easily create tables that show the information that's most important for me. So starting off on the left side here, we can see what attributes we have that we want to be displaying. So there's a pretty long list of attributes that you can pull different things from. So whatever you're interested in seeing, pull that information in. And then once you have the attributes selected that you want to pull information from, start creating tables. So choose, from that list of information that or attributes that you pulled in, what grids you want, what style of graph you want, if there's any additional display information you want in there, choose that and then add that chart in. And you can quickly start, digesting some of that information. And again, you can always save these reports and reuse them. So if you need to come back and check on this later, then save those attributes that you've picked up, save that table layout that you want, and easily be able to come in here and from a high level start reviewing that information. And now as we select on some of the parts or sections, I should say, inside of these graphs here as well, it's going to update that table at the bottom. So this is live results based off of, what is associated here. So it has some intelligence there to tell what's going on. So coming into this WINDCHILL tab here, this is our first look at the home page inside of WINDCHILL. So right now I'm signed in as Peter inside of here, and this is what my home page looks like. So just to go over a little bit of the basic user interface information, the first thing to note is you get some tables here on your home page, but you can always change what tables you want. So whatever information is most important for you, like maybe some saved reports, put that on your home page and make it the first thing that you're going to see when you come in here. Now above that, we have the recently accessed tab. Now this is a pretty straightforward button, but very useful. Anything that you've recently been looking at, come there, and you can easily toggle back to looking at it again. Now, above that, we have the quick links, which has some information in the WINDCHILL Help Center, as well as some settings that you can set for your preferences. Next to the quick links here, we have the simple search. So the simple search has the ability to first pick, what type of object it is. And again, you can see we have some very specific objects to med devices around those CAPAs or customer experiences. And then from there, say, okay, based off the fact that I'm looking for a document, I want to look for either the name or the number around this, or some attributes that you might have around it. And it's going to bring you a table back with results that match that. So right now you can see we have 128 results in this table, which is still a lot to look through manually. And so we have the ability to refine results based off of attribute differences between those documents, like maybe who created it, what DHF category it falls under, or when it was modified. You can also do secondary searches here inside of the table to quickly get down to the information that you're really looking for. And when you do find that, then you can always just select the number there, and it'll bring you to the information and the details about whatever object it is that you're looking at, whether that be a document or a CAD part or a change process object, whatever it would be, it'll bring you to that object, and you can start investigating that. So now that we've gone through and done a search on some documentation, seen how we can load those documents up into the system, and then a little bit around that, we can look at how we can also manage some of those. So I mentioned the context a little bit whenever we were uploading that first document. So the contexts are just ways to store and manage the information, and they're broken down into a few different types. The main two that you're going to be working with are this first one here, products, and then the second one is the libraries, which we'll take a look at next. So with the products, this is all of the information that would be specific to a product. So we have this renal system in here, maybe this blood collection system, whatever it would be. Anything that's specific to one of those products goes in there. So any parts or any data that's about our dialysis renal system would go under there. and etc. And so that's how you manage where that information goes. Now libraries are for more general information. So here you can see we have the kind of just quality documentation, whatever it would be. And these are for things that you want a lot of people to have visibility into. So with the products, you're specifically going to give access to the people who need to see that information or work with that information. With libraries, you tend to give more general access to people, and this is where you might put things like general documentation, standard operating procedures, things that you want everyone to see. And inside of here, we have folders, which is a kind of a subway to manage that information inside of the context. So you can do some folders, generate up, however many folders you need and whatever kind of structure you need. And then that's where it's going to manage those documents. You also have some projects which allow you to manage some collaboration aspects with external teams, as well as the quality tab for anything around specific quality information like CAPAs and things of that nature. But we're mainly, again, going to be working with our product and libraries context. Now that we've seen some documentation, we've seen that you can bring that up into WINDCHILL, search on it, be able to manage it inside of here. Next, maybe we want to start bringing in some additional information. So I might say I want to bring in a customer complaint. I'm just going to add an actions tab here to my home screen and then say I want to bring in a new customer experience. And again, just similar to that document earlier, it's going to bring in a wizard that has the information that you need to put in here and make sure to guide you step by step through putting all of that in here. So we'll start with a date that we want to apply that for. And then from there, next say whether or not that date is approximate, as well as if we wanted to put the entry location. And so this is where you start to see a little bit of the connectivity of information inside of WINDCHILL. So we can manage a lot more than just documents inside of WINDCHILL. We can manage, the CAD data. We can manage essentially skills for people, places, whatever it would be. And because of that, now we can say, well, I already have an object inside of WINDCHILL that is specific to the hospital that this was, we received the complaint from. So I'm going to associate it to that location. And then from there, if there's any additional information about maybe what country it's in, or if anything else, I can do that, including how it was reported, and then any other information you might need. Next, we would get into the code for the problem, and you can either put this in manually or you can expand out a classification tree and just choose from that classification tree what the problem was. So in our case, we have a malfunction, and it's going to bring that code in for you. And of course, you can always put in a summary to describe what happened or what the problem was, as well as be able to add any additional information in to fully describe what's going on. Now continuing on in the idea of data associativity here and kind of cross collaboration between groups, we have the ability to start bringing in some personnel as well as the location that we saw earlier. So next I could bring someone in who maybe is the reporter. Maybe it's someone who works with the hospital that we're familiar with, and so we're pretty used to working with them. So we're going to add them in here as someone who's going to be a contact when we have issues like this. So we're going to put them in as the primary reporter of the problem. And then we're going to associate the specific product that the problem occurred for. So again, because we already have these products built inside of WINDCHILL, I can just search for that MWR dialysis system again and say, yeah, this is the system that I'm talking about. I want this to be associated to it, and bring that in there. And of course, you can bring in any additional information like the quantity that was affected, and then what the units are for that, as well as whether or not it's the primary device. And then if you have any additional codes or any other information, of course, you're free to fill that in. But once you have that all in there, you can bring in attachments, whether that be a URL to something, a video, a picture, whatever it would be, attach those, and then you're essentially ready to go. So you say, I want to submit that object, and it's going to go ahead and create that new customer experience. So now once you have the, these experiences coming in, or CAPAs or whatever would be coming in, you want to be able to, again, view that information and manage that. So we can bring in some of our reports maybe that we have and that we want to be able to view. And so we could start with saying, I want to come into a quality report and maybe look at this CAPAs. So I'll just come up to my CAPA report here and say, all right, again, we've got, some different views into this information. Maybe what parts or what products that we have the most corrective actions out against them. Where are those at? do I need to change anything? If I want to change the view, always come back in, change those graphs for something that's a little bit more intuitive for me reading that. And just the idea again here, be able to get quick high-level visibility to where is this getting sourced from? Where is the problem coming from? What type of problem do we have? And as I select on any of those, update my table to match, and then I can start digging into that information further. So next, if we had a kappa that we had a problem with, or we had a corrective action that we've done, but I want to make sure that it doesn't happen again, then I can set up a data monitor around that to say, hey, if those same criteria are met, alert me about that. And so to do that, I'll just pick a report, that we've run that I say we've met some criteria that we don't want to happen again, give it a name. In our case, we're going to say this is going to be for adverse events for that renal system, that dialysis system here. And now we say, okay, let's pick when we want this to start. When do we want it to run till? How long do you want it to run for? And do you want it to run kind of by a number of firings? Do you want it to run daily, weekly, bi-weekly, whatever it would be, however often you need it to run, set it to run for that. And so in our case, we're going to say I don't want a max number of firings. I just want it to go daily. And then from there, now it'll run that every day and check if anything meets those same report options. And at the end of that, if it does, it will email, whoever I would put in as email recipients to say, hey, we have a problem. This same thing has occurred again that we don't want to be happening. So maybe we need to take some further actions to address that. So to that point earlier about just high-level visibility and views into your product health, not only be able to see that information, but then set the system up to continue to watch that for you so that if there are future problems, immediately, not downstream, so that you can start addressing those. Now, continuing on from there, if we wanted to take a look at maybe some of the non-conformances or at some of the complaints as well, we can again toggle to any of those at any time for the reports, see where we're getting the most complaints from, what country are we having the most issues, and what are the different failures that we're experiencing, and then where are those coming from. So maybe there's a problem with one of our suppliers, or maybe there's a problem with one of the hospitals that we're giving them to in transit there. Whatever it is, start looking at that information and get a high level visibility into, let's address what's the real problem here. And now the last report we're going to look at here is for the non-conformances. So same type of idea around what state are those in, is this being worked on? Are we happy with where those are at? What types of non-conformances are they? And where are they coming from? And now, again, as we select on these, if I find one that I'm very interested in, maybe I've got some audit issues I want to address, because of the associativity inside of WINDCHILL here, I can find whichever one it is that I'm interested in from this table and toggle to it directly from here. So I want to take a look at, this ESCON card audit finding. And inside of here, I can easily then start looking at, from that non-conformance management, what objects is this related to? What CAD data or what medical device is this associated to? So we'd come in, say this is again related to our dialysis system. And now one thing I want to note here, you can see that this is actually looking at an old version of this dialysis system because it has this go to latest. So because of how it keeps and manages your history, you can at any time always go back and look at older versions. It's not like those are lost. You're still managing those and storing them, but it's also going to alert you if you ever are looking at an old version. And if you try to use the old version, it's going to say, hey, this is not the latest version. That's probably not what you want to be doing. And then if we click that go to latest, it'll just bring us to that newest version here. So you can see we have some visualization inside of here as well, which is another common theme throughout WINDCHILL, is to visualize that data, especially for maybe some quality people who might not have things like CAD data or CAD tools. If they want to visualize 3D data, they can still see that here inside of the system and understand what's going on. And in terms of being able to work collaboratively, a lot of people can come into this space, bring in their specific input and their information, and then give people a view to see all of that information and how it's associated and related together. And a perfect example of that being, if I come to my changes, I can see all of the changes that this product has ever gone through, as well as where it's at in those processes. And then I can start looking into that specific process to see where we're at in it. So, maybe if I say we have a change request out against this system, I want to take a look at that specifically. well, now I can start digging in on this kappa, what sites are related to this, who was the person who submitted it, or who was it affecting, what are the affected objects around it, what actions have been taken so far. So again, high level visibility to quickly see how all of that information is related, what the health of our objects is, and go from there. Now specifically, if we come back to this little product that we're going to be working with, we can say where all is this being used, this little SCON card. And this is another of those kind of high level visibility kind of factors here is, if I know I need to make a change to this, I want to know what all that's going to affect downstream. Well, I can just come to the where used tab for any given object in WINDCHILL, and it's going to show me everywhere that it's being used, so that I know, oh yeah, this is just being used in our dialysis system. So if I make the change to it, no real major effects downstream. But maybe I'm using this SCON card in 10 different devices. If I make this change, it might improve it for this one device, but be problematic for the other 9. So now I have visibility into that and can say, okay, maybe we need to make a one-off of this card specifically for this device, as opposed to changing it for all of them, or whatever it would be. Again, have that visibility to that information. So we'll go ahead and take a look here further at this high-level dialysis system that we have. And starting off from the details page here, we can see any general attribute information. Again, see that visualization of that object. We can do anything we need with that. We can always come to our structure tab as well. So the structure tab here is where we house the bill of materials. So this is where you're going to have all of the parts that are inside of whatever this device would be. Now with WINDCHILL, we have these gray gears here showing up in the bill of materials, and these are what's known as WINDCHILL technology parts. And what these do is they almost act like a bucket essentially, where you can store different information together. So maybe if you have a CAD object, for example, you could check that in and associate it to a WT part. And then you could start associating other information to that WT part, whether that be analysis information, documentation, vendor information, or cost information. Start associating all that together inside that WT part. And then with this bill of materials, it becomes almost a bill of information where I can see whatever I want, whether that be just some documents, or whether that be for a different part that I want to see maybe some CAD data, or I want to see all of it, whatever it would be. I can choose that and display all of that in this bill and have a full digital product definition that has everything that describes my part or my device, not just CAD data, not just documentation, but everything. And that those WT parts, I'll note as well, is what's managing some of those data associations between the different data here inside of the system. Next, we can come over to our DHF tab here, and we can see that we can easily go down through and see everything that's in our device history file here, and manage all of that, or design history file here and manage all of that. And of course, you can always export these out as well if you need to send this off to someone or use it for review. Pick what type of export you want, and then it will generate that for you. If we go ahead and just open up this PDF here real quick, just to take a look at how that comes out, we can, again, view these and then share that off to whoever would want to manage that. And looking here at this PDF that we've generated, it's just going to take all the information from that table that we saw in WINDCHILL and generate it out into a nice table for you to share out. So now that we've seen, some of this information as well, next we can toggle back over into WINDCHILL here and then go into our DMR tab next here. So with the DMR, it's going to be pretty similar to what we've seen with the DHF, specifically what information you need in that device master record. Go through, look at any of those objects, see how they're related, be able to publish that out again in whatever format you would need, and have that auditable ready for any information that others might need. So coming back to our structure tab here, the next thing I want to take a look at is a little bit more document functionality. So if we take a look at this quality manual that's associated to our dialysis system, we can see that we can also have structures for documents. So if you want to have relations between documents, you can set those up and show how one document might be, sub to another document, and build out that full structure however you would need. So just, some nice functionality there to show some relationships between documents and how those fit together. Now, continuing forward from here, we can now come into the browse again and come back to this top level context for our dialysis system that we've been working with. And if I wanted to look at maybe the project or the project plan around this, I'd say I want to come to my plan, then say schedule, and I can look at that schedule that I mentioned earlier in the PowerPoint around being able to say, whatever phases we need, whatever goals we want, set those up, set deliverables that I want by those times, check to make sure that people are meeting those deadlines. If they're not, assign it to whoever needs to do that and get that information done. And again, from a high level, see, are we on target to meet our deadlines? Are we missing any deliverables? Is everything healthy? And it's going to do that and associate all that data together in that process. Now, if we come back into the folders tab here as well, inside of this, renal system, I could come into my training folder and see that we have a few documents here that have to be trained on by different people. You can see it tells you what each type of those documents is. And if I have one specifically that I'm interested in saying, I want to see, who still needs to train on this, I can just come to my training records tab, see who that's assigned to, and see, whether or not they've completed that and what the expiration date on that is, as well as if there's a change, then you can push that change through and it's automatically going to send out new training records or new training tasks, I should say, to the users. And I could, again, then come back in here, check that out. I could also, of course, run a report on it, similar to the other reports that we've seen being generated throughout the day. But realistically, that's kind of what the WINDCHILL solution for med devices is trying to give you here, is it's giving you a place to manage this information and associate it together. And then once you have that information in here, give your users a place to come in, collaborate, work on information, manage that data, make sure that you have a complete history of any change that you've made, have iteration and design control, and then be able to manage those changes as well, be able to go through in a uniform change process, make sure that all those tasks that would be, around that change process get sent to specific users inside of the system, and then push updates downstream to all of that deliverable information, whether that be documents, CAD data, analysis information, whatever it would be, associate all of that in that change process, make sure that it's being kept up to date. So I'll go ahead and toggle back over here just to close off with our PowerPoint. And so to finish off here with some of the capabilities that this is really giving you. Number one, based on that out-of-the-box functionality, you're going to be able to reduce implementation efforts because it's pre-built to be able to work with your type of information and with medical device specific industries. And it is pre-configured and validated, so it has some validation packages already, so that it's again easier to get up and running. And then it will be kept upgrade compatible so that it stays in compliance as we upgrade it, making it easier to adopt. And then this does use best practices for the medical device industry, and it was fully intent on that when we designed this solution. And it gives you a configurable baseline that you can start with easy, get set up fast, and then if you do need to maybe make some changes, you can start to do that from there. So at a high level, that is kind of the overview of what the WINDCHILL medical device solution looks like and what capabilities it gives you. So I don't know if any questions came throughout the demonstration there, but if not, we can kind of take a pause here and let people ask any questions that they have.
Yeah, Cody. So we had 3 come through. Let me read you some of these, and then with the time remaining, you guys are more than welcome to keep asking questions while we have Cody here still. First question that came in is, can WINDCHILL QMS run standalone?
Standalone in which sense? So this solution specifically is yes, it's out of the box ready, to stand up and can go. Now we do have another solution called WINDCHILL Quality, which is why I want to make the distinction here, which is around doing some other quality types of work, and that is not standalone. That would require base WINDCHILL. But with the solution that I showed today and everything that I showed, yes, it's standalone, ready to start up, and you could launch it.
Good, thank you. Next question, does quality integrate with others non-PTC systems?
So you can integrate into other systems. I would depend, obviously what the system is. But for example, like if you wanted to bring in ERP information, we have a lot of standard out-of-the-box integrators to some different ERP systems that you can use. We do also have the ability to work with other CAD tools. So it does not have to be like a Creo CAD tool, for example. You can do connectors to all different types of CAD tools as well. And then PTC in general has a platform called ThingWorks, which is our IoT platform. And using that, we have what we might call connected PLM that allows you to connect into essentially almost any database that you would want. And you could stream kind of information bidirectionally then either into or from WINDCHILL. So the answer is almost always yes. The question is just, is that something that we have an out-of-the-box connector built for already, or is that something that would take a little bit more customization?
Perfect. And the last question here that I have, and then we could probably give just a few minutes. And this one is, are change workflows configurable?
Yes, the change workflows are configurable. We give some, again, best practice out of the box ones, but you're more than welcome to configure the change workflows to whatever process, your company is used to using or currently uses.
Perfect. Thank you, Cody. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And just to reaffirm, we're going to be sending out the webinar recording shortly. Thank you again for joining, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day. And thank you again for your time, Cody.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.